Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Call It RevOps, and today we're talking about AEO, GEO, and the new rules of CRM. Essentially, what you need to do to stay ahead of the automation arms race. So let's start with the really obvious shift here, which is that SEO is no longer the ceiling. When you think about AEO or AI engine optimization or AI summaries, for example, you're now trying to optimize for how AI is going to interpret and summarize content, not necessarily just rank for a keyword that you're looking for. A lot of folks are skipping Google, but they're often using Google as well. And instead, they might be asking ChatGPT,
Well,
Gemini.
even Gemini prompts, right?
Yeah.
Even like Google searches nowadays, Gemini prompts. So, and
Hmm.
it's not so much about engineering it anymore. It's about earning the trust of the model. And
Yeah.
you do that between, I mean, don't get me wrong, like keywords are still part of the picture and all of that stuff that we know. But what they're scanning for is consistency and authority. They're not scanning for who has the most keywords relevant to the topic that you're trying to adjust. And then there's GEO, right? The Generative Experience Optimization. And I just want to stop real quick. We've mentioned the word AI, and I feel like we've said the word AI in the first 5 minutes of this conversation at least like 50 times. And I want to actually apologize to the listeners because that term within itself is just annoying to hear. But really, what we're talking about, like, we can't talk about what we're talking about without it. So, like, AI curates like these experiences. Like, that's the ultimate ideal, not marketers. And here's the scary part that kind of more companies are afraid of, especially if you're like a smaller company or a mid-sized company, obviously the enterprise companies, but your brand could just disappear from the awareness stage, right? The entire part of where discovery happens could be lost if we're not adapting to this change that is happening inside like this whole SEO kind of realm.
Yeah, exactly. And discovery is decentralized. So before it was, I'm searching for a keyword that's going to be mapped into my metadata. You're going to arrive on the website, and I'm going to tell you a story about my brand, what we do, what we offer, the types of things that we're really good at.
Well, no, exactly. And that means operations now have to re-centralize around data and not channels, right? Like before it
Yep.
was very channel driven. Like now, what is your data saying? And that's what really these LLM models are taking into account.
So let's talk about what that means for the systems that are holding everything in place and expecting to start, once we get that first party data, telling the story, which is the CRM and the marketing automation tool. So the CRM as it sits right now, it's not broken. Nothing has changed from a MarTech standpoint. It's just blind. It doesn't have the visibility that we once had. And now we have to find a way to drive automation without losing reliability in this new generative landscape.
And most CRMs weren't designed with that idea in mind. There's like this declared intent. Like they were designed for someone fills out a form, fires off some sort of trigger, we send it to the sales team. But now, like people don't really fill out anything. Like we know that. Like a lot of
Yeah.
the content now is an ungated strategy because you put the information out there, and then they ask AI, get the answer, skip the funnel entirely. What do I need to know? Tell me the five best companies that should be working with. Find me related articles. All of this automation logic is essentially just what's been firing, but we're still firing off old signals that, and I don't want to say that world doesn't exist anymore,
Hmm.
but with the advancement in technology, the way that it's working, like these MQL workflows, these static workflows, are they still happening today as we record this? Yes. Are they going to happen next year? I mean, we're in quarter 4 of 2025 when we're recording this. Who knows what's going to happen in January of 2026? Will Smith was barely eating spaghetti 2 years ago, and now we have
Yep.
a full, people creating full videos with AI in the span of 2 years. So if you think about how fast technology is moving, and so once again, I'm not saying that it's gone away now, but it's really time to invest in it, understand it, spend time on it, because who knows what's going to happen in the next 6 months.
Exactly. We're in the explosion of this kind of this AI phase and honestly what feels a lot like middleware almost because AI can capture these intents, bring them, coalesce them in real time. It's really going to be about dynamic enrichment, not just hey, this person got to our website from a Google search. They downloaded a white paper and submitted a form. Now they have an MQL score. I mean, we've been talking about MQLs being obsolete for a long time, and this just further kind of, I think, puts the nail in the coffin, so to speak, where MQLs, lead scoring is going to have a hard time keeping up with this new landscape. That's kind of where RevOps comes in as well, is that we have to build layers. We have to build different areas that we can find time instead of saying, uh, we're going to do this really quickly. We need to do it really accurately.
And And everyone's racing to add AI, but nobody's really thinking about which AI is a fit in our realm. And I want to clarify that in the marketing tech and the marketing ops, RevOps space, GTM ops, whatever other naming convention, naming titles that we have, is in this space. We're trying to figure out where AI sits in, and companies are adding AI in different variations, but no one's thinking about how do we fit it into our ecosystem. And if you don't know where AI belongs in your architecture, it's just going to create headache, noise. You're going to invest time into it, people into it, and it's not going to return anything. And then, you know, the term that comes up is like bloated tech stack, right? Like that's another add-on to a bloated tech stack, and that nowadays is becoming a really really big threat because there's so many of them out there. There's so much tech. There's so many companies that are talking about how AI is going to change and revolutionize everything. And it's like shiny object syndrome. As marketers, we're just
Yeah.
tagging onto it. We're jumping on it. We're implementing it, and then we're paying a bunch of money for it. And we're like, this does absolutely nothing for us because it's not really AI. It's generative data or anything like that.
Yeah, and it's not about having the biggest, most powerful tech stack. It's about having a tech stack that works well within what's available, interoperability. One thing that's kind of interesting to me as well, we have to acknowledge is that these AI tools are great. Existing technology has a lot of value around automation and scale, and sometimes you need the hands-on keyboard because we know this AI will hallucinate. AI will give you wrong information. It might give you incorrect data points. So having hands-on keyboard, having the human element involved, and having a strong strategy driving everything is still going to be the sticking point, the linchpin to holding everything together.
Yeah, and here's kind of the truth, right? Like operational visibility is going to be the new version of attribution, multi-touch attribution. Generally, if you can't see how AI is influencing decisions, you're not going to be able to improve on them. So when we talk about frameworks and we talk about what is the practical adaptation of it, to your point, the hands and keyboard are the ones that are auditing the automation triggers. They're tying it to what is static intent, what's available. How do we layer AI based enrichment, or how do we now act upon inferred behavior? How do we centralize all of this? How do we align these teams, and how do we ultimately kind of align leadership understanding of how we're going to influence AI? Like that's where the value is going to be. It's not going to be in a product. Just like when marketing automation first came out, people were like, "Oh, it's a product, and we'll send emails automatically, and you get it. You hit a button, and it does everything for you." It's not the case right now, right?
Yeah.
There's prompts that have to be built. There's have to be rules of engagement. There's a lot of things that you have to build for the model to understand what you're wanting out of it before it actually can kind of adapt and grow on its own.
And I think it's fair to say in that same way, as we get ready to kind of wrap up this episode, I think looking at the new rules, AEO, GEO, and when you think about Google, AI overviews, they're not trends. They're going to be here to stay, and they're rewriting how RevOps teams have to approach these conversations and understand living architectures. Right? It's not just we're going to set it and forget it. It has to be constantly maintained, considered, evaluated. And the faster that the environment is changing, like you said, we don't know what's going to happen in January 2026. And in January, we're not really going to know what's going to happen by June or April of 2026, right?
Yeah, and Mark Benioff from Salesforce, because Dreamforce is happening this week, he said very specifically regarding agentic AI, this AEO, GEO shift, and all of these AI components. He said that if your data is not correct, then you are going to architect your way into a bigger problem, right? And it's
Mm,
and he said
wow.
that this week about it is that
Yeah.
all of these AI metrics, people are worrying about speed. They're working about getting involved almost into this armed race of AI, who does AI more. But even the biggest kind of the data company, the biggest CRM company, is essentially saying like all of these layers of AI, data is the crux of it. And if you have bad data in an operating model, it's going to amplify that bad data 100,000 times. So where you won't now you won't be able to track down where it happened. So before
Mhm.
you enter this, just make sure that these new rules is like the new rule of engagement is making sure all your data is in a place so you can scale accordingly.
Yeah. And I think that's the key takeaway. It's AEO and GEO. They're not coming, they're here. And CRM is missing out on a lot of the discovery phase and has that blindness and doesn't see a lot of it. But understanding and adapting, and I think that's kind of what you're referencing, right? Is being able to adapt is going to be more important than ever.
I mean, that's going to be the new line of work, right? Like being able to adapt to what changed. I mean, just like when marketing automation happened, everyone had to adapt to the tech change. Everyone wanted it. We had to learn through the process. We're just in a new era of it right now as well. And that's where, you're probably going to see, you're probably going to see go to market operations, which is the new phrase that ops people are calling themselves.
Yeah.
Next year, you're probably going to see them as engineer adaptability agents, or I don't know,
Yeah.
something along those lines. But this whole engineer adaptability thing, like GTM engineers coming, like, oh, we're GTM engineers, we're, go to market operations. Next year, you're going to see AI titles come up for sure about marketing ops people who have transitioned into this adaptive, or have adapted, I would probably say, into this role of a operations person, but this operations person is now training AI models. So what does that next title look?
Absolutely. And again, as we wrap up and conclude here, thank you guys so much for joining. But if this episode got you thinking about AEO and GEO and how it's going to impact RevOps, share it with your ops team or share it with someone else that you might have as a colleague. It's an important discussion to have. And being RevOps, being in RevOps and GTM ourselves, we know it's going to be ground shaking and it's already changing the landscape. But yeah, thanks again for listening to Call It RevOps. Be sure to check out wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'll see you next time.